Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jenna, your host. Today's topic is we're going to talk about kind of the psychological reasons why people chop off all their hair. So for those of you that are new here, I'm a licensed cosmetologist. I have been since I want to say about 2011. And so while I don't actively work in a salon any longer, I did for several years. And part of that was really fun, really exciting. I learned a lot. Made a lot of really good friends, had some really fun customers and things like that. But due to some injuries and health issues, I had to stop doing that full time. So then I went to part-time for a while, and then ultimately I decided to leave the hair industry and didn't know what I was going to do with myself. So for a while I was unemployed and just kind of spinning my wheels, and then I went through a lot of major changes that kind of led me on the trajectory to do YouTube and social media, read tarot, do mediumship, all that stuff. So long story short, I am one of those people that drastically sometimes will change my hair. Sometimes I'll grow it out, it'll be longer. Other times I chop it off. I've shaved my head several times. So I want to dig in and let's find out why do, especially women. We're going to focus on women because guys get haircuts all the time. Who cares? No offense to you guys out there that watch my channel, but for men, it's expected that they usually get haircuts. For women, they're more expected to have long hair, right? And so women like me who don't prefer to have long hair tend to be kind of looked at like we're oddballs in society if we've got a shaved head, right? I think it's getting more and more normal to see women with short hair than it ever has before. But I do feel like society's standards are that women should have long hair and they should look feminine. So all of that stuff aside. All right. So science says that there's no single specific reason or scientific reason psychologically for cutting your hair off, right? There's no real reason, but we will find a reason if we really want to change our appearance. So some of it's linked to feeling a sense of control and a fresh start during or after a major life event, right? I remember when I was still working in the salon, I would have people come in that maybe they're going through a divorce or a breakup or they're moving or starting a new job, right? And so there's a lot of inward changes that come with that. And so it tends to be reflected on the outside as well, especially women. I feel like if we're dealing with internal stuff going on, something's coming out of that on the outside to show all of the inner work that we've previously done or are in the midst of doing. So the act can trigger a release of dopamine, a feel-good chemical that provides a tangible way to assert control when other aspects of life feel overwhelming. I can honestly say that that rings true for me. At least it did in my own world. So I went through a lot of upheaval in my life early in life, right? I can remember like I was a mom at 18 and I got married at 20 and then I got divorced at 23, remarried, re-divorced, all these things, right? Had a pack of kids. I had 4 kids by the time I was 25. So I went through a lot of change really quick in my world. And one of those changes happened to always be reflected in my hair, especially trauma. Now, I don't know where or why this really started for me, why my hair always ended up kind of paying the price for things, but we did a live the other day and it made me think, you know, that would be a really interesting topic to like dive into is why we kind of do this stuff. So I learned along with you guys during these podcast episodes kind of what these things are all about. So I want to share those things with you guys. So I feel like for me, initially, it was a sense of control, right? A lot of things in my world were always kind of spinning out of control. There was always chaos. The household I grew up in was conflict and chaos, lots of fighting, lots of, just BS going on all the time. And I couldn't wait to leave home at 18, and I did. And I never intended to go backwards, but life threw curveballs, and I did temporarily after the birth of my first son. I was a single mom, so I was trying to navigate being a teen mom and how to raise a kid by myself. So I was at home temporarily a year or so and figured things out. And when I got married, I left home and I literally never thought I would go back. And again, there was a curveball. During my divorce, I stayed with my mom temporarily until I got back on my feet. So I was grateful for the help that she had given me over the years. But part of it is about reclaiming control in your life, right? Maybe there's many things in your world that you can't actually physically control. Maybe you're a control freak. This girl. I like to have things in order. I like to have things in control. I like to have power over my own world, right? And I think most of us do. So maybe you micromanage things. Maybe you're working on that. Maybe it's a work in progress. No harm and no foul over here. But cutting the hair is a way to take charge of something, especially when other life changes feel out of control. I will tell you that during my first divorce, I went through a nervous breakdown, the first of 2 that I had. And so one of those was that I almost didn't want to have anything that reminded me of that person, including my appearance. And so I had about shoulder length hair forever, probably like 20 something years. That's how I always wore my hair. I had waist length hair when I was a little girl, and then it went to the middle of my back, and then it went to shoulder length, and it was a variation of between my shoulder and my jaw for years and years. And so after I had my second son, I decided I needed a fresh start, and I chopped most of it off, and I liked it temporarily. It was good. It worked out all right. But I let it grow back out, and it was okay. And I'd go through more traumatic things later on, and same thing, the hair would pay the price. Now, when I went to cosmetology school to learn how to do hair, skin, and nails, I learned the scientific stuff behind mixing color and the ratios, and we learned about certain diseases and things involving the skin, the hair, the nails, because that was our scope of expertise. We learned how to perm, we learned how to color, we learned how to cut, we learned how to do nails, we learned how to give facials, waxing, all of these things, right? And so in the midst of that, we have to practice those skills somehow. So if you didn't have clientele that was a guinea pig to volunteer to come in and get services, you had to rely on the general public to come into the school salon and get services at a discounted rate, because we worked under our educator's license at that point until we were certified. So that's how that works for any sort of like hair school that you might come across. So part of that is that we were our own guinea pigs, right? So we would practice on each other. We'd color each other's hair. We'd perm. We'd do nails, all these things, because how do you practice if you can't do it on a human being? So that echoed into things in my life. Oh, you're having a bad day. Oh, your boyfriend broke up with you. Oh, your paycheck wasn't what you thought it was going to be. All these things, right? So then you start kind of dabbling in these things and doing them on yourself. Some work out really well, and others were a giant mistake. But we learned something from each of those things. So I had bleached and colored my hair since I was probably 14 years old. Highlights mostly. Sometimes I would go really dramatic one direction or the other. Platinum blonde. I've been a redhead. I've had purple hair. I've had hot pink hair. I've had silver hair, black hair, like you name it. I've probably had that in my hair at some point. I've had long hair. I've had short hair. I've had seen hair. I've had a shaved head. I've had all these crazy different things over the last 15 to 18 years or whatever of my life. And it was a way for me to change something, to have control over something. My hair always paid the price for whatever was going on in my world. And I made a promise to myself about 2 years ago that I was going to stop coloring my hair. It was going to be what it was going to be. We were going to see what my natural color was at this point, because I honestly didn't know. And if I was gray, fabulous, because I love silver hair. And if I wasn't, that was okay too. And so I shaved my head down to almost nothing. So shaved it really, really short. And then I kind of let it grow in. And those of you that have been with the channel for a while, you know I had it down to about here. Had it maybe just slightly longer in the last 6 to 8 years or whatever. And then I'll periodically get sick of it and I chop it shorter again and let it grow back out. It's just something that I do. I don't know why it always ends up being my hair, but it does. It's been that way for a very long time. So it can be symbolic of a fresh start. A drastic haircut can symbolize a definitive break from the past and an embrace of a new beginning after a major life event, such as a breakup or a career change, right? And we've seen that, at least I have, working in a salon. Sometimes you'll see like maybe you were a stay-at-home mom for years. I was too for a long time. And, you know, it didn't matter what I looked like because I was just home wrangling little toddlers all day long. I could wear whatever I wanted. I could look however I wanted to, and it didn't matter. But when I had to go work in a salon, I had to look the part, right? I had to look somewhat professional in that industry. And so your hair had to be groomed, makeup, you know, dress code with clothing and things like that. And I didn't necessarily like the part where we had to dress in all black. I didn't like the part that we always had to have makeup on. We always had to have our nails done. We always had to have our hair color updated. And so that kind of wears on people for a while. It's like, it's hard to be an individual when you have to conform to what your expectations are. And so while I enjoyed doing cuts and color, it got really monotonous for me. It came to be where everybody's, oh, I just want to trim. Oh, I just want my roots done. And I really enjoyed the part of like major makeovers. Like that was my favorite part about doing hair, was it's kind of instant gratification in a way because you get to transform what somebody looks like. And so for me, if I wasn't getting a lot of that in my daily career field, I tended to do a lot of it to myself, good or bad, however it happened to work out. So career changes, breakups, things like that can definitely be where it's like a release to chop all your hair off and start fresh. So releasing the emotions, it can be quite cathartic in a way to shed the baggage associated with a past situation or a past person. So there's a saying that we used to say is that you get a whole new head of hair in 7 years' time. Like it takes that long for all of the strands to fall out slowly and regrow. And so in 7 years, you have a completely new head of hair. We also would say that, you know, hair holds memory. And so that's why you would see a lot of women chop off lots and lots of hair, especially going through like a traumatic ending, a breakup, a divorce, a job change, a loss, right? Grief can do that too. Certain cultures around the world, especially Native American cultures, that's the only time they really cut their hair is when somebody in their family dies. And so it's a way for them to shed like energy basically, and so otherwise they grow very long hair and it's sacred to them. So I've had some people that I used to cut their hair that were full-blooded Native American, and it's like a spiritual concept to them to cut their hair or to grow their hair, and it's something that they don't do very often, but it is a way of like releasing or letting go of those feelings or emotions. It can also give you a confidence boost, right? Let's say you've been in a funk. Maybe you've been really down, really depressed. Maybe life's not going well. And it's like, man, a fresh haircut sure will make you feel better, right? Because you feel more yourself. You feel reinvented. You feel lively again. And that was always something that it made me feel as well. I felt clean. I felt excited. I felt refreshed, all of those things. And so I love getting a good fresh haircut. And I know a lot of people are that way too. So it can totally boost your confidence. So there's also time and energy savings, right? Because if you don't have super long hair, you're using less product, shampoo and conditioner, styling takes way less, things like that. So shorter hair can be easier and quicker to manage, freeing up time and mental energy. I know I enjoy not having a ton of hair to mess with all the time, even though short hair still requires maintenance, right? Because like it grows out really quick. So you have to get more frequent trims to maintain a certain shape or style. But it takes like 5 minutes for me to throw a little bit of like leave-in oil in my hair, blow dry it, and I'm out the door, I'm done. So I enjoy that aspect of it. It can also have symbolic reasons why people do that as well. A haircut can be a form of self-expression or a statement to oneself, others, or community, particularly during periods of significant change. So have you experienced that? Have you gone through like a major change in your world where you feel like, I need this change. I need it to feel like myself again, the new version of you. So you can also be using it to adapt to new circumstances. It can be a practical response to new situations, such as moving into a hotter climate, taking up a new sport where maybe long hair is more of a hindrance. So definitely some things to consider. So what does it mean when a woman cuts off all of her hair? What does that mean? There's a saying that I love: a woman who cuts her hair is about to change her life. Why? If she's willing to sacrifice her outward appearance in any way, then she's about to make a big move in her life. And I can honestly tell you that there's been certain times in my life where that was a huge factor for me, that I chopped it all off and I made some big changes in my life as an after effect. So when a woman cuts off all of her hair, it can signify a major life change, a fresh start, or a need for emotional release and control. It can also simply be a desire for a new look, a change in hairstyle for practicality, a way to feel more confident and free. The act is often tied to emotional experiences like a breakup or other significant life events, allowing for a physical representation of an internal transformation. So what we're feeling on the inside is coming out on the outside, right? There's something that reflects what we're going through. There can also be a need for a new beginning. It can symbolize the desire to let go of the past and embrace a new chapter in her life. An emotional release, a way to cope with stress, frustration, heartbreak, or acting as a form of emotional shedding. So I remember years and years ago, I was getting out of a really abusive relationship. I've had a few, unfortunately, but I can remember thinking that I couldn't wait to chop off all my hair so that there were parts of me that he had never touched. And that was a way for me to kind of release some of that trauma. So during a time when things feel out of control, cutting the hair is a way to take back immediate, tangible control of one's life and one's appearance. It can also be an identity shift, right? I was a quiet, passive person for most of my life, and I was treated like a doormat. And by maybe looking a little bit more rough around the edges or a little bit less submissive, I feel like people took me a little bit more seriously than maybe they did before. So it can be an exploration of new identity after a major event like a breakup or career change, helping to match an external change to an internal one. So matching the energy, right? What we're feeling in here versus what we look like on the outside. And for some, it's a statement of freedom, confidence, and independence, right? Some of us want to be in control of our own lives, and maybe we feel like we're not. Maybe we feel like there's not enough to go around. So it might be some things to change. There are some practical and aesthetic reasons for a new look. She might simply want to drastically change her appearance and try a new style, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Easier maintenance. It's more practical to have hair that's easier to care for, especially if the lifestyle is active or the weather is hot. Healthier hair, right? A few years ago when I stopped coloring it, I decided that we were going to choose health over looks. And if it wasn't healthy, I had to chop it off. And so bleaching and bleaching and bleaching constantly, it makes it to where it feels like chewed gum. So you can just barely put any pressure on there and it snaps off when it's wet, sometimes even when it's dry. And that doesn't look good on anybody. So cut the hair. Choose healthy over anything that's not healthy at that point. A very short cut can be a way to remove damage and to start fresh with healthier hair. And that was part of the reason why I ended up shaving my head a few times, was because I had fried my hair off. I didn't care. I knew better. I did it anyway because mentally I needed to get rid of all the things that I felt like I couldn't control. It can also be for age-related changes, right? We know that most women past the point of 40, 50 years old, typically we see them in shorter hairstyles. It's easier, right? Sometimes we're going through the change of life through menopause. Your girl's been in surgical menopause since she was 28 years old. So I started cutting my hair short back then at 28 because I was dealing with all these hot flashes and mood swings and juggling a divorce and single parents and work and all these things, right? And I needed something easy in my life. And so the hair was something that had to go. So some women find that their hair texture changes with age and a shorter style works better for them. My hair texture has definitely changed in the last several years as well. So I used to have extremely straight hair. I used to call it straw or hay because it literally was stick straight. Like it wouldn't hold a curl. It literally just hung there completely straight. It looked like if you would straighten it or flat iron it all over naturally. It didn't do anything. Now it has got just a slight little bit of wave to it in certain spots. And if it gets longer, you start to see that a little bit more. So I'll get like kind of a little bit of a wave around my face here and there, but nothing too crazy. My sister has curly hair, my mom has curly hair, and my dad has curly hair, but I was the only one that had really straight hair. So I always used to joke that I was adopted. I wasn't, but I always used to joke about it. So let's see, mimicking a look. She might want to change to look like maybe a celebrity or a style that she saw in someone else and wanted to emulate it, right? So we all know that certain times of the year, like I feel like fall into winter especially, a lot of the women who maybe get a lot of highlights and things or really do a drastic color change in summer, maybe they live in it for the summer and then come the cooler months or the fall and winter time, they go a bit darker, right? So they don't have to maintain the highlights because it's damaging to the hair. Maybe they do a drastic chop. Maybe they're sporting a bob or a pixie cut. Maybe they've shaved their head because they're sick of it all. Whatever it happens to be, lots and lots of change. They could also do it as a drastic way to stand out. A haircut can be a way to stand out for a specific event, such as a wedding. So maybe you're going to do a big chop or something. Religious and cultural reasons also factor in. Some specific contexts of cutting or shaving hair has religious significance, such as a tonsure for religious devotion. So why are so many women cutting off their hair? Can be a bunch of reasons. Could be fashion, style, a personal choice. Sometimes they're just tired of caring for their hair and managing long hair, and it could also be for mental health reasons. So I really do think that a lot of us, whether it was triggered by a breakup, an ending, something not going well, maybe a significant loss in your life, it's like it's a release. It's cathartic for us to chop off some of our hair, right? The hair is said to also bear the weight of our feelings, our emotions, the things that we've gone through. And so if we look at it like that, let's say for 6 months to a year, you were in a really negative relationship and you want to get rid of that dead weight or that energy that was around you. Hair grows typically a half an inch a month. Okay, so it grows very, very slowly. So half an inch ends up being about yay long a month. So let's say it grew 2 or 3 inches in the time you were in this situation. So let's say you wanted to get rid of that energy and you cut off about 3 inches of hair. Well, it's freeing, right? All of a sudden mentally we wrap our head around, oh, I feel so much better. All of that negative energy is now gone, right? So that can definitely be something that we experience mentally and physically. It can also symbolize letting go of the past and personal transformation. So things that maybe we need a fresh start in. Maybe you're letting go of an old identity, reclaiming some sort of new image. So it can definitely be symbolic for your personal history. It can also be a physical manifestation of some sort of internal shift in your life. So is cutting your hair a trauma response? It can be. So it's often linked to emotional coping mechanisms. I can say for me that was something that resonates. So it can serve as a way for individuals to exert control and express their feelings during challenging times. The act can also bring temporary relief from stress, anxiety, or heartbreak, transforming your appearance and potentially your mindset, right? And what comes to mind is an old In Vogue song called, I think it's called Free Your Mind and the Rest Will Follow. Well, if we don't have all this garbage swirling around in our head about things, then we tend to not have these stress responses as often. So it's a way for us to cope in a way that's not necessarily harmful. It can be. I will say it can be. So let's say you decide you're going to do what I did for years and you're going to color your hair 3 times in a week and basically melt it off. That's not healthy, right? That's not a healthy coping mechanism. Most people would be like, just stop. What are you doing? Sometimes it's almost like a compulsion where you feel compelled to make this change. And so that is not a healthy coping mechanism. So I do think that, women have come a long way for how we used to do our hair. Like if I think back to the Victorian age, right? Women had long hair, but they always wore it up, right? It was all pinned up. Maybe it was under a hat. Maybe it was under a scarf, things like that. And so for as long as I can think of in history, long hair has been synonymous with femininity. But now we're starting to see things change. You can still be really, really feminine and have ultra short hair or even a shaved head. And I think society is somewhat coming around to that. But I still think women get judged for, like, let's say they were totally bald and there's no medical reason for it, like they don't have cancer or anything, then they're kind of judged for that. Whether they want to be or not, I feel like people still definitely do. Okay, so let's talk about mental health and hair. So what is the first stage of a mental breakdown? Because this can be a trigger for people this time of year especially. So where I live is the United States, and we're going into fall and winter where I live. And so a lot of people tend to get what's called seasonal depression, seasonal affective disorder. So it's called SAD. It's basically the weather makes you sad, okay? And so lack of sunshine, more darkness, less daylight, being cold, not being able to go outside as often, things like that can contribute to those things. And since I suffer from those things, I want to spread awareness about mental health issues because it's something that is avoidable as long as you are willing to actually make the effort to do things to help yourself. So some first stages of a mental breakdown. It often begins with feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, emotional exhaustion, and feeling emotionally drained. So if you're feeling that way, know that you are not alone and that there's many of us out there and help is available. This can manifest as persistent worry, difficulty sleeping, irritability, and trouble concentrating, as these are early signs of your mind and body being unable to cope with stress. I would say that probably the majority of the population has experienced those feelings at some point in their life. It's if it continues relentlessly that we probably need to take a look at that a little deeper. So overwhelming anxiety goes beyond typical stress, and it can include persistent worry, frequent panic attacks, or a constant sense of dread that interferes with your daily life. I have suffered from panic attacks since I was in my teens, and I've taken medication off and on over the years. I've done therapy, I've done inpatient treatment before, and I've gone through a lot of different things to help me get a control on why I'm having these, like what is the real reason why I'm having these anxiety or panic attacks. They're not pleasant. If you've ever had one, you literally feel like you're going to die. You feel like you can't breathe. You feel like the walls are closing in around you. You can't think straight. Your heart's racing. It's very, very scary to have one. And there's treatment available if you're struggling. There can also be a lot of emotional exhaustion. I get that way a lot sometimes too. You might feel really drained, depleted, and like you have nothing left to give, even after sleeping. I also have a chronic illness called fibromyalgia, and so it's a chronic pain condition. So there's a neurological issue with my pain responses being dialed all the way up. So even a light touch can feel like I got smacked. Even though I didn't, it's still painful to my body. My brain responds to thinking I'm in pain. So I go to sleep in pain, I wake up in pain, I don't have refreshing sleep. And so chronic pain really alters your brain and how you interact with the world. And so it can be difficult on high pain days to deal with life, right? Interruptions in sleep aggravate that. Panic can, create more problems. Not being able to concentrate, those definitely all make it worse. Sleeping problems can be another one. You need sleep. I used to only sleep a few hours a night. I remember at the worst, it was about 3 hours a night, and then I'd wake up and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I'm a light sleeper anyway. I hear every little noise in the house always since I had small children. And it's like the mom brain never shuts off. It just never got any better. So I found out through a sleep study that I have sleep apnea. So that helped me to be able to get about 7 hours, sometimes a little bit more. Usually it's around 7 hours that I will stay asleep now with my CPAP machine. So, Darth Vader over here, Darth Vader, but it made a difference in my cognitive abilities to be able to remember and communicate and to think. So that rest, your body needs that rest to be able to function well. So if you're having difficulty falling or staying asleep due to worry or sleeping excessively to avoid problems, those are some common early indicators. There's also irritability, and I'm definitely guilty of that. I am a person who I don't deal well with stress in my life anymore. So I try really hard to alleviate things that bring me stress if I can. So I can't work a normal 9-to-5 job anymore for that reason, because being on a schedule, having so many people depend on me for things brings me anxiety, and it's a trigger for me to kind of go in a downward spiral really quick. And so I have to find other means to earn a living because it doesn't work for me anymore. I've done too many years where I worked in really high stress jobs, and it created such a problem for me. So difficulty concentrating, I've suffered from that as well because of all these other issues. So you might struggle to focus on tasks, make decisions, or remember details. I used to love to read books. That was something that I would pick up, like a really fat, thick book, and I couldn't put it down. Like I'd stay up half the night reading, pick it up the next day, and I absolutely loved it. I haven't picked up a book to read cover to cover in years at this point because I have difficulty concentrating, or I'll have to reread the few sentences that I was on over and over again before I feel like I retained it. And so that's part of the issue of, you're always in fight or flight and dealing with all these mental struggles, that it does actually affect you cognitively. So what can you do about it? What are some helpful things that you can do? If you are experiencing these symptoms, it's important to seek professional help. Talking to a doctor or a mental health professional can help you to address your symptoms and to develop some coping strategies, positive ones. Not just shaving your head. Don't have a Britney Spears moment out of nowhere, right? Where she just takes the clippers and is like, zoink, oh, whoops, too late now, we're going to go bald. That's not necessarily healthy, right? If it's something you've been thinking about for a long time and it's something you want to do and it's not a mental meltdown, then it's probably fine. But just know that people will definitely judge you even if they say they're not. They are. They're wondering, are you okay? They're wondering, is there anything medically going on, mentally going on? They're going to literally sit there and go, what the fuck? They might not say that out loud, but I guarantee you, what the fuck? That's what they're thinking behind the scenes. So what can we do to help some of these things? So one of my favorite things that I started to do was journaling years and years ago. I started to journal, and I have journals from a decade ago that I filled up. One of them I remember filling up when I was in an inpatient mental health facility because I had had a nervous breakdown. I was feeling suicidal. I was dealing with really anxious thoughts, and I knew that I was in trouble, and so I knew I needed help. And it's not that I wanted to be there, but I knew I needed to be there so that I could be rehabilitated in a way or get things back in control so that I could be there for my kids. And that was important. And so not that I had really ever entertained the thought of I was going to harm myself, but started having thoughts of that. And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't ever act on that. And so that was a big deal. I had really severe postpartum depression after my fourth son. And to the point where I didn't feel bonded to him in the first 6 weeks, where with my other kids I did right away. And with him, I felt really disconnected, and I didn't understand why. There was nothing wrong with him. He was totally okay. But it's he would cry and I would feel oh, there's a baby crying. But I didn't feel oh, that's my baby that needs me. If there was a disconnect there. And I know that's difficult to explain or understand for people who've never been in that situation, but it's an extremely common thing that happens to people after birth. And so I feel like women need to know that that's a possibility. And if those things start happening, you need to take action and address that with your healthcare professional and your family so that they can help you through that. Especially if you don't have a support system, that's even worse, so it can be more of an issue. So I want to say I spent it was like a week to 10 days that I was there. So we did individual and group therapy sessions. We did some cognitive exercises, started medication. Some of it was anti-anxiety medication that really did help me not feel like I was in panic constantly. Antidepressants for a while, mood stabilizers, like all sorts of stuff. I'm not currently on any of those medications. I've been transitioned off for many years, but in the interim, when you're going through that, it can be very beneficial so that you don't harm yourself. And so that's something that I feel like it's a real risk. People need to be aware that there are times in your life where you're going through trauma and you're going through things you don't understand, and maybe you don't have a support system. There is help available. And so I feel like that's something that's really important to mention. So if you are ever in that position, there is a 24-hour crisis line that you can call, or you can text. Now it's available. You can text them at 988, and that's something that there is somebody there 24 hours a day that can give you support. They can hook you up with professionals that can help you and give you resources to be able to hopefully get you through that extreme breakdown at the time. So what are some warning signs of somebody around you having a mental breakdown? Maybe your spouse just had a child, or maybe they went through a traumatic event and you want to be their support system. Maybe it's not you that's going through it. Maybe it's somebody around you. So some signs of a mental breakdown include emotional, behavioral, or physical symptoms such as withdrawal from friends and activities, extreme mood swings or irritability, difficulty concentrating or making decisions, and physical issues like fatigue, trouble sleeping, and panic attack symptoms like a racing heart or difficulty breathing. They can also have cognitive, behavioral, and physical signs of a mental breakdown, and those often develop from overwhelming stress. It is an important issue that you need to seek professional help for if it's you or if it's someone else that you know that's experiencing these things. So people can also act different during one of these breakdowns. It can manifest differently with different symptoms for everybody, but there are symptoms typically seen such as mood and appetite changes. Maybe they're not eating, maybe they aren't sleeping well, maybe they can't concentrate, maybe they're having communication issues, or maybe they try to withdraw, right? Like they just don't want to be around anybody. So those would be some things that maybe you would want to keep an eye on them. Maybe if it's like, your partner or something, that you get them a checkup and you get them evaluated, make sure everything's okay, because sometimes they don't even realize what's going on. I know I didn't initially when it started for me. It was just I was under this overwhelming stress and anxiety and worry all the time, and going through the loss of my marriage, losing custody of my kids during that time. It was a lot on my plate. I was homeless for a while. I turned to drinking all the time, which didn't help anything. So there can be a lot of factors that factor into why somebody is dealing with some of these things. So what do you do when you can't cope? So what you do want to do is talk to a friend or family member about how you're feeling, somebody that you feel like you can trust. You want to plan time for activities that you enjoy, or maybe even take up a new hobby. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be something that's relaxing. Take regular exercise. Maybe you just take a walk around the block and get some fresh air. If that feels overwhelming, sit in some sunshine for 5 to 10 minutes every day. Let that sun get on you, because it will actually help you feel better. Make relaxing a priority. Carve out some time every single day that is you time, and it's relaxing time. We don't turn our phones on. We're not worrying about work or obligations. We're simply relaxing. Maybe you take some deep breaths. Maybe you take up meditation or yoga or deep breathing exercises. Maybe you turn on some peaceful, relaxing music and you plug in headphones. Maybe you take a bubble bath. Whatever it happens to be, as long as it's a healthy coping mechanism to help you to relax. Spending time outdoors in nature. We weren't meant to be indoor creatures 24/7. Our ancestors lived off the land, right? So they were outside in all of the elements. Early up in the morning, right? It's sunrise to sunset. And so getting enough natural light is going to help you with your circadian rhythm, which is your internal clock that tells you when to get up and when to go to sleep. And so if you're spending enough time in natural light, that helps you to get ready to unwind and to go to sleep. So plan your time. Make sure that you have a schedule that fits in things that are healthy for you, and have a healthy sleeping pattern. Go to bed around the same time each night. They called it sleep hygiene. And so part of that is you're training your brain that at certain times we're not messing with TVs, we're not looking at our phones, we're off of the blue light screens, so that our brain is like, it's dark, it's quiet, it's sleepy time. And we do that with babies, right? We're trying to train them from outside the womb to be able to wake and sleep at normal intervals, right? So babies tend to wake up in the middle of the night because they're hungry, they need a diaper, all these things. And once those needs are met, their little brain's learning that when it's dark, we sleep, and when it's light, we're awake. So you're training your brain and your body that if you're up earlier in the day and you're in natural light, by the time it starts to get dark, you should start to get tired and want to rest and relax and get ready for bed. So it's an important thing to kind of like retrain your body how to do. So are there reasons why you think women specifically would chop off all their hair? Have you yourself done that? Was it for one of the aforementioned? Was it a career change? Was it a breakup? Did you just need a new look? Were you sick of long hair and decided you wanted to change? Like, have you ever done that? I would be curious to hear from you. Are there any others that have also experienced the mental overwhelm, that have gone through similar situations? Have you had a nervous breakdown? Have you, experienced a lot of trauma? That's what this podcast is about sharing knowledge to help us to break these cycles and to go forward and heal. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, shoot me an email. It's always linked in the description of all of the videos. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. We'll see you next time.